Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I was going to start with something French. I was going to say bonjour, bonsoir, but I thought I didn't know what time of the day you were going to end up watching this, so it'd make no real sense. Back from Paris, hopped on the Eurostar, back home, and here I am to talk about a crazy game, an absolutely mad game. Wasn't as horrendous as I thought it was going to be. Let's be honest. I thought all of us expected the worst game ever was about to unfold. It was certainly better than the Sunday. It was still a defeat, though. But it gives us loads of little bits to kind of dive into. Might have noticed slightly different thing there. That is my fellow Spurs reporter Tom Barkley's book Miracle in Bilbao, which is seeming more and more like a miracle with every passing day with Tottenham Hotspur. And yes, he's been whinging. You're going to put it in the background of your video. You're going to put it in the background of your video. Because that's exactly how he speaks. And so there it is. It is very good. It is very good. I kind of had to help him with some little bits of it when he was in the process of writing the book. Just trying to use my memory and reading through some bits and pieces for him. It's very good. It's very interesting. If you want to go back to that, depends kind of, I'm sure it'll be a very good book for Christmas or whatever. That sounds like I'm selling it now, which I'm really not. I just said I'd stick it in the back of the video. But there you go. Hopefully he won't moan at me with that voice anymore. So the game in Paris. It was a strange one. It had a bit of a familiar feeling. I'm hoping it did to me. I'm hoping it was a familiar feeling that becomes a reality, because I'm going to take you back. Step in with me in my time machine right now. We're going to go back 11 years ago this month. There was a moment early on in Mauricio Pochettino's Tottenham tenure when he realised kind of what he had to do to survive at a club like Tottenham Hotspur, which is a crazy club. Very few people do survive for very long there in terms of a job. They don't actually kill them off. And I'm hoping that Thomas Frank has had his Pochettino moment where he's realised, okay, that's what I've got to do to stick around this place. So if you're not aware of that moment, 11 years ago this month, like I said, Pochettino's era looked like it was spluttering to an end before it even really begun a few months in. The squad he'd inherited was not the young, hungry one he had at Southampton. It was a Tottenham one full of clicks and fading stars. Lots of older players maybe looking out for themselves in the dressing room rather than what he wanted to do. Some of them didn't take to his ways and what he wanted, especially his tough, quite physical training sessions and demands in matches as well. Some of them just completely rejected and kind of disrespected him in certain ways. So he's suggested since, or some of the people around him have suggested. So that kind of all came to a bit of a head on the night of November the 2nd, 2014. Spurs, you may well remember, you probably do remember, away at Aston Villa, 1-0 down, 6 minutes of normal time remaining. And Pochettino turned to Jesus Perez and his staff and he said, lads, pack your bags tonight. Tomorrow we're going home. He expected the sack. He thought that was it. His time in the big job, as it were, or the bigger job was done. And then a couple of younger players who had bought into his methods went, no, we're going to save him. One, of course, was Nasser Chadli, scored the equaliser. It was 86 minutes in. And then a young gentleman called Harry Kane popped up with that dramatic last gasp deflected free kick that went into the net. Turned everything around. And he would later say, Pochettino, that was the moment everything changed up there in his head. About how he was going to manage this, very unusual club with very kind of, it's a strange club because it has high expectations, but actually in terms of history, not a lot of great recent history. And that was his issue that he was dealing with, and a squad that wasn't really fit for purpose. So he said, I took the quote from what he said kind of when he looked back on it. He said, we can't carry on like this. The revolution had begun. The match made us realise that to succeed at this club, we had to do things our way. That game unshackled us. Before then, we had too many people around us spouting their opinions. All those voices confused me and passed their fears on to me. After the Villa game, I found myself saying, I know what I've got to do. I know where to go. I'm sure I'm going to be successful. I have no doubts. And that was that. I told my people, it's over. We're locking the door. I started to build the team in my own image. I resolved not to cave in whatever happened. So look, bringing it forward, straight back in our time machine to yesterday in Paris. Spurs did not win the game. Of course they didn't. Let's not dress it up as if they did. They lost the game and conceded 5 goals. The second half defending was absolutely awful at certain points, especially from their captain in a couple of moments as well, which is a shame because 55 minutes or so, they played really, really well and had done everything meant to kind of from the game plan, and they'd been quite exciting to watch at times as well. And I think that's the key for me. That's where this familiar feeling lies, is that there was enough positives in this game against Europe's best side, the champions. I know, Spurs, we're the champions of Europe, but we're the champions of Europe down there. And they are the champions of Europe up there. And I think it was a game that kind of maybe showed Thomas Frank what he must do. And like Pochettino, I think that lies with building the team around the young, rapidly learning stars that he's got. Because look, 2 19-year-olds last night in Paris showed more guile, more fight, more tactical understanding than the other 11 players that played on Sunday at the Emirates combined did in that horror show that we had to watch. 2 19-year-olds. Sometimes that's the thing as well, and I think that's what Pochettino found, was that there's a hunger in younger players. There's a fearlessness. I think we saw a lot of that in Paris from, who we're talking about. Lucas Bergvall and Archie Gray, of course. Last night's formation. Some people still telling me today that Spurs played in a back 5. It's like, hello, did you watch the game? They did not play with a back 5. They did not. It was a back 4, and it was a diamond formation in midfield, which was quite fluid in terms of sometimes Archie Gray started the game at the tip of this diamond. Other times Bergvall would be there and Gray would instinctively come back. And there were times as well that Sarr would move quite advanced down the right, and it would almost become a 3 with Richarlison and Kolo Muani up front. So it was this quite fluid formation, but mostly a 4-4-2 diamond. But in this diamond, you've got 2 teenagers, and you've got Pat Matar, relatively ancient old man Pat Matar at 23 years old. All of them given license to kind of get forward, with Rodrigo Bentancur sitting at the kind of the anchor of this formation. And this was a very different match to the one in August. Anyone who was in Udine will know. Obviously, we know the circumstances back in August. PSG had just come back from their break. I was going to say half-term break. It's not their half-term break. From their summer break after the Club World Cup. They were not ready for it, really. They still won on penalties. But this was a very different occasion at the Parc des Princes with all of their crowd behind them. I didn't think it was as noisy. It was a good atmosphere. It was a decent atmosphere. It wasn't like a Marseille or a Galatasaray or those kind of games, but it was a different atmosphere. It was very much their home. And they had early chances. They've got a galaxy of stars in that team. They had their early chances, but no, Spurs took charge in the 35th minute of the first half. Lovely goal, and it was those 2 young players. Lucas Bergvall, who had tried once before, actually succeeded once before in doing a lovely little back flick, back heel to Archie Gray into his run. Did it again this time. Perfect. Archie Gray looks up, shows the presence of mind to just chip a little ball a little cross to the back post. Kolo Muani also shows the presence of mind, rather than trying to squeeze a header in the near post, to head it back across the 6-yard box. And there's Richarlison, right place, right time, to nod it into the net. 3 goals in 3 matches for Richarlison as well. For someone who can be very frustrating, he is scoring goals. He is getting in the right places. And of that goal, which was a lovely team goal, Luis Enrique even said in his post-match press conference, incredible. He said, we didn't defend very well, but it was well played, really, that goal. But of course, you are playing against the best team in Europe, not the world, because they didn't win that. We don't say who beat them in the final. But in Europe, they are the best team still, the reigning champions. And that means you've got a few decent players in there. And unfortunately, quality players don't sit back and go, well done. Oh, well done. That was rather wonderful. They absolutely will take any moment of just a lapse, a bit of space, anything to punish you. And that was what Vitinha did. And he was brilliant yesterday. He was a joy to watch. You can kind of see It was like watching a superstar. He was good in Udine, but he didn't stand out as much to me. Some people would kind of tell me, "Oh no, he was quite good." I think it was the fact that he just didn't really stick out in my mind. Whereas I will remember his performance for a long time last night because he was just that good. And of course, hits the equaliser. It's just a rocket. There's nothing you can do. Yeah, you could have closed him down a bit more, but the way he put that shot into top in Thomas Frank's words, top corner. It was brilliant. You just got to hold your hands up and say fair play. That was class. But Spurs weren't put off, and this is the thing about it. The young players, they kept on driving on. They were hungry. They were saying, okay, we could kind of collapse at this point and fold, but they didn't then. And Pedro Porro launches a deep corner to the back post. Richarlison again getting in a good position, heads the ball across. Archie Gray, so unlucky, lovely run onto the header, flicks it with his foot. I think it was Zaire Emery, heads it up onto the crossbar. The ball bounces out. There's Randall Colomwani. Had to be, he's paid by PSG. Well, it's technically not at the moment. He's paid by Spurs, but a PSG player rifles a lovely volley, or half volley back, which I think it was Mark Renos on the line just could not keep out. So his first goal for Spurs. No celebration I can remember. There is a photo of him on the floor pointing to the kind of the heavens, as it were. But I'm guessing that's not technically a celebration, is it? That's more maybe a religious thing, perhaps. But anyway, I digress, as I often do. Really nice goal. Spurs back in the lead. Fair play. We're all up in the press box going, hello, typing away. 3 minutes it lasted because of that man Vitinha. Again, this time comes in from the right-hand side and curls a shot with his left foot. The first goal was a rocket with his right. This one, a beautiful left-footed curling shot, which it does look like, you watch it back, it looks like Bentancur kind of goes up at the last minute. I think he maybe thinks it's going wide, and if he touches it, he's going to kind of deflect it somewhere or it goes for a corner rather than a goal kick. He was wrong. It was curling right inside the left-hand corner. So, yeah, 2-2. And I think that was when you started to notice that two youngsters in Gray and Bergvall, they started to tire. And as they tired, so Spurs kind of lost a little bit of the impetus in the midfield battle. And that was when Christian Romero also decided he was going to become the villain for the day. After so many terrific European matches, especially towards the tail end of last season, this was not his day. 59th minute, plays this needless pass to Pat Matasar. I think some people suggested Pat Matasar was calling for it, but if you're the captain, you're the older head, you just go, no, you've got someone, I can see behind you, someone is running to tackle you, so I'm not going to pass it to you. But he did. Sarr gets caught in position. João Neves picks out Ruiz. It's a lovely flick. I didn't appreciate how good the flick is to Fabian Ruiz from Neves, but it's terrific. And then he sweeps home. He's kind of all alone in the box. Then, unfortunately, we're saying about collapsing, it did get a little bit worse because corner comes in the box. I feel like it was a chance for Sarr to clear it when it bobbled his way in the scramble, but he doesn't quite react quick enough, and William Pacho gets in there, just kind of pokes the ball into the far corner. But to be fair, Spurs, they didn't utterly give up. They didn't decide that's that. They kept pressing. Bentancur, fair play to him, right up the other end of the pitch, presses Vitinha. The only mistake Vitinha made pretty much in the whole game. He gets pressed. The ball breaks to Colomwani, runs on, smashes home the second goal. And you're kind of thinking like, oh, maybe 4-3. Could this be an utterly ridiculous conclusion from Spurs? But no. Drama and Romero weren't done with this game. He, again, Vitinha involved, takes a shot. Romero slides in, going, hello. And the ball hits his hand. And there's no, you can't argue with it. It's a penalty, and Vitinha completes his hat-trick. I think he sent Vicario the wrong way, if my memory serves me right. And in case 8 goals was not enough for you, let's have a red card in added time as well, as Lucas Hernandez utterly whipped out his elbow into Xavi Simons' face. Poor Xavi Simons, former PSG player, thinks he's I'm coming back to the park. Yes, I'm going to play. I'm not even going to play. And he comes on for the final minutes, And when he comes on 5 minutes, he gets elbowed in the face. It's just the ultimate kind of insult, really, isn't it, on the day? And also a really annoying moment for reporters that have to file their copy. I had to file my match report with a certain national newspaper. Normally you have to do it around the 85th minute. So I kind of sent mine off thinking, okay, right. Well, that's got to be that. And then we have a red card in added time that I've got to then add in as well. And then send them a little bit more copy to update it. But yeah, fun and games. There's insight into the boring stuff we have to do as well, among all the other things. It was just a mad game, chaotic game, but one that promised far more than anyone expected, and then just went, ugh. Is that, again, the Roy Hodgson kind of meme, isn't it? It's like, oh. It's just, that is Tottenham in a meme. Yeah, so that means Spurs have conceded 9 goals in the past 2 games, albeit to 2 very good opposition. You still shouldn't do it, though. And 11 goals they've conceded in the past 3. And I think what makes it all the more frustrating is Spurs have scored 5 goals across their past 2 games against PSG, the champions of Europe. That should be enough. That should be enough for you to win both games. But no, they somehow contrived to lose both of them. Mad. But look, there were positives. And like Pochettino, I'm hoping Frank finds a way forward in some of the things he did with the formation as well, but also with the youth, with using those young players, and how key it could be to build the team around that pairing for me as well. I think that's the key thing for me. And I think the way he was talking after the game, it sounded a little bit Pochettino, like that kept my kind of comparison going despite the result, because he started to kind of see more of a Thomas Frank team within it than whatever mixed kind of thing he'd seen before. He said, today I saw more identity of the team we want to create. Much more character, personality, aggressiveness. 3 words you need to have in any team, no matter what you want to do, how you want to play, whatever formation. Today we saw it, and I'm pleased with that. It was a performance that was up there where we could get something out of the game, a draw or a win. So that's a little frustrating thing that we conceded some goals. It's 5 goals, Thomas. Of course, one with a little bit of margin from Vitinha, not top corner, but top corner. And then, of course, goals 3 and 4. Those are the ones we definitely need to avoid if we want to get something out of here, but something to build on. Strikers scoring 2 goals. The whole team, I think, all performed well. Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, positive when we played against a decent team where they have 1 Ballon d'Or winner, and I think the next one playing in midfield, Vitinha, wow, what a player. He was quite chipper. He was quite happy. He was not a man, it didn't come across as a manager that had just seen his team concede 5 goals. He was very much, I think, maybe, I think it's probably a stretch to say that he was expecting a hammering like maybe others were, but he probably would have had a bit of trepidation after the Arsenal game. Are the players going to respond? Am I going to see more of the same? Is this going to be an embarrassing thing to have to talk about afterwards? But he saw enough that they, I was going to use the word competed after saying that last week. I want to see, not just compete, I want to see more than that. But I think he saw some green shoots of recovery is the best way to put it. Or the green shoots of the team that he wants to build is probably the best way to put it. And look, last season, Spurs kind of learnt to play in more kind of difficult European environments. They started off the campaign utterly scared to death at going to Rangers, going to Galatasaray, and they looked just terrified by it all. But by the end of the campaign, they were coming away with really professional performances. Frankfurt, Boda, in the final itself as well. So I think it taught a lot of those players, who obviously much of the squad is still made up of, how to handle it. You could quite rightly argue, well, they forgot about that in Boda and Monaco this season, but perhaps it's just, again, slow burners, slow starters, I don't know. But first half, like I say, first 55 minutes, they really quietened the crowd down and tamed what noise there kind of was. And I do feel like 2 of those players that were kind of, what's the word, forged in the fires of those European away days last season were Bergvall and Gray. You know, And don't forget, Gray this season was one of the ones who helped save Spurs in Boda, didn't he, with his kind of last gasp efforts along with Richarlison. And I think they showed that they can deal with that. It's not going to overawe them. No atmosphere or situation should overawe them now. And they were very much putting their hand up and saying, pick me, I'm here, I'm ready, pick me, kind of thing. And I'm hoping Thomas Frank listened, because I just felt, especially as a partnership, that's where it's at for me. And I asked Thomas Frank about them after the game, and he said, yep, very impressive. 2 young players who I said from the beginning that I believe a lot in. Archie was there ready before Monaco, and then unfortunately picked up the calf injury. So we've been waiting for him to be ready again. Today he showed a lot. The way the 2 of them set up the first goal was joyful to watch, but the mobility, the technicality, the ball handling, mentality, character, I liked it. And this is the thing with Archie. It almost feels like he's playing catch-up, because Bergvall's been getting a lot of minutes. Of course he has, not as many as maybe he or we would still like, but he's played 61 times for Spurs, which is mad when he only joined last year, and he's only 19. Archie Gray's only 8 behind him on 53, but of course most of his performances have come from being a centre-back or being one of the full-backs. It could be right-back, it could be left-back with him. But look, this is a midfielder. Yes, he played at Leeds as a right-back to kind of, I guess, part of his education, but he is a midfielder. Spurs paid 40 million for him, if you're including Joe Rodon and that as well, because he was one of the best young midfield talents in England. And we'll always go back to the FA Cup performance against Chelsea. That was very much his calling card 2 seasons ago. He dominated a lot of their midfield. Yet Spurs have brought in this £40 million kind of wonder kid, as it were, and not really given him the opportunities in midfield to show what he can do and progress and develop there. And I've said this previously in other videos and in articles. He'll have been training for much of last season as a defender. He would be working with Matthew Wells in the defensive group. He would not have been working with the midfielders, apart from the games where he wasn't finally required to be a defender. So he's lost a chunk of time of actually training as a midfielder. So he is playing catch up in my mind, and I feel like last night just gave hopefully Thomas Frank a reminder of how ready he can be and what he will become if he keeps kind of progressing. You know that my opinions on Archie Gray. I do think he is potential Spurs captain of the future. I think he's got so much talent, and he just has an awareness of the game. He comes from this famous footballing heritage, of course, the Greys, and he just understands the game. He gets it. He's very tactically clever, and he spoke after the game while I was up in a press conference. Some of the guys ran down to the mix zone to grab a player, and he spoke, and he was asked about the kind of coaching, as we were talking about, now being able to coach as a midfielder and everything. And he said the coaching staff have been absolutely brilliant with everyone, especially improving our individual games and stuff like that. Last season was a tough season. Obviously, it ended really well, but a lot of tough moments in the season, especially for me playing centre-back and all these different positions, which I'm grateful for, but there were loads of setbacks. It's just things to learn from, and the coaching staff this year have been really helpful with individual plans and stuff like that. So that's what I mean. He's getting more focused now on being a midfielder. And I asked Thomas Frank about that diamond-shaped midfield and kind of the trio of young players and why he decided on that. And he said, as you could see, the game plan was to really go after PSG, man to man. If anyone's followed me just a tiny bit, they know that's what I want. There's much more the identity, that aggressiveness, that dynamic into the team. And to do that against PSG, who are that fluid and mobile all over the pitch, I thought we needed a more running, powerful midfield across the midfield four. And Gray, he said he enjoyed it. He enjoyed the fact that it was kind of man to man. He said, the pressure is just man to man. Find your man, stay with them. Obviously, just trying to find the spaces where the midfielders don't want to track you and finding the half spaces like with the cross. It was enjoyable. And like I said, I want to see them as a pairing because I think maybe they've underestimated the kind of bond these two guys have. They arrived together pretty much would have started the first day together as 18-year-olds at the club. They're frequently seen together around the club. They've got their own little friendship groups as well, but the two of them do get on very well. And I think that shows on the pitch. I think they're both very clever in the way they play. And the goal was a perfect example of Lucas just knowing he was about to make a run and playing this really clever back heel. And Archie Gray said about that, he said, me and Lucas are really close. Every time we're on the pitch together, we just trust each other 100%. Even if there's pressure on us, we know we can play to each other and we can handle that pressure. We're really close on the pitch and off it as well. And yeah, so going back to the Pochettino analogy again, he built this team that was anchored around these talented young players with like a sprinkling of senior talent. And I think Thomas Frank just has to do the same. And I think these two, and Pat Matasar as well, it could be the potential engine room of Spurs for years to come. And you've got the experience of Paulinho and Bentancur that can be the kind of the anchor for these players. You're not going to play a diamond in every game, of course, but I do love the idea of Bergvall and Gray and Sarr kind of interchanging as these really powerful running midfielders who've also got great technique and also can arrive in the box kind of unexpected. They've got a goal threat in all of them, really. So yeah, that was my thoughts on those. And of course, Randall Kolo-Muani. We finally got to see him exactly what we've all been waiting for, I think. Obviously, he's going to be fired up on his return to PSG. And first goal was a lovely finish. Second goal, got a little bit of luck as he's running through. The ball kind of bobbles and hits him and goes on. But sometimes you do have to just bundle your way through. And it was a lovely finish. And I thought his link-up play was really strong on the night. And what I really like about him, he's not afraid to drive at the defence with the ball. I think maybe that aspect of playing on the wings sometimes, he takes that into the centre of the pitch and he will just go at the opposition. So he can get in behind, he can take the ball at them, he can link up play. It's a kind of an unpredictability it's really important for Spurs. And because opposition defenders don't know what he's going to do. With someone like Richarlison, yeah, like I said, he's in good goal-scoring form. But you kind of know where he's going to be most of the time. You know what he's going to do with the ball. He hasn't quite got that same ability, and he hasn't got that ability to drive away from players. He hasn't really got the pace to do it. So, yeah, he's a very different kind of player, Kolo-Muani. And, I think the fact that PSG know all about him, he is their player, yet they still couldn't stop him scoring twice and assisting Richarlison's goal. So it kind of says a lot about that unpredictability that I was speaking about. Thomas Frank was asked about him afterwards and he said, today we saw what hopefully we can expect. I think even 2 goals and assists in every game is probably too much, but I would love to get that every single game. But as I said the whole time, he came in late with no pre-season, not top fit, had 2 setbacks, especially with the dead leg and then the broken jaw. Today we saw more of it. He's still not top fit, but hopefully he'll come in more. And he will. He'll get better and better as he gets fitter and sharper. And actually, Vitinha was asked about him in the mix zone after the game. And he said, I'm very pleased for him. He's not just a very good player, but he's a good person as well. I like Kolo a lot, and I'm happy he's doing well in Tottenham. Sometimes you don't succeed at one club, but it doesn't mean you're a bad player. It's just the context. And a lot of things around you can happen and can explain why that's happened. But he just shows he's more than that. He's succeeding at Tottenham, and I wish him all the best. And that he will have a great career because the guy deserves it. So yeah, it was good. He needs to start on Saturday as well. And I actually did quite like the way that he played with Richarlison. I think that's an interesting dynamic, the two of them together. Another pairing, we talk about Gray and Bergvall, but actually as a duo, they played quite well. So we could see that more often as well. But look, I'm very wary that I've spoken about positives, mainly, the 2 youngsters and Kolo-Muani, but it is still a defeat. 3 wins in 12 matches for Thomas Frank, which is a poor run of form. But I just think maybe I just don't have any desperate need for negativity after the Arsenal game again. And to be fair, I spoke to a lot of Spurs fans out on this show. I always do. It's all the same faces, a lot of great people. I was earwigging slightly. I was sat in the Garden Nord station waiting for the Eurostar to board, and I was sat there just typing away my talking points, and I heard this lady Spurs fan was talking to another group of Spurs fans, and she was looking for someone because a Spurs fan who somewhere in the station, because she's got this habit that she has to, every time she sees him, she has to rub his stomach. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a good luck thing. It was the day after the match, but I don't know. But it's just stuff like that. It's funny little stories that you hear, and people kind of tell you about their journeys and their trips. So it's all good fun. I would say, while people will be like, oh, to be a Spurs fan right now, I did feel like they enjoyed elements of this performance more. And I think it is. I said this so many times before. I'm so sorry to bore people that have listened to me in the past say this, but I do feel with young players kind of learning and growing and exciting aspects of them and the hunger they show and the desire, it's easier for fans to connect with. And that's why I will always maintain the Pochettino team was one that people connected with so much because these young players grew together as a team, and we were kind of almost like kind of watching on as they grew, or we were exactly doing that. We were watching on as they grew as players and people and everything, and it all became a bit of a family. I think that's what Thomas Frank needs to get to, and I think having these young players front and centre can do that. And there's a few reporters actually that were kind of like thinking, oh, this is going to be such a routine match to cover. PSG are going to smash Spurs, that's that. And then when the team news came in, it was a bit like, oh, it was a bit different. It's a bit weird. There's no wingers and all this sort of stuff. But actually, when you look at it, you're like, I'm kind of intrigued to see how Gray and Bergvall do. It kind of changed the dynamic of reporting on it. Because they are coming up against, some of the best midfielders in the world. And they held their own until they did naturally tire both of them. Archie Gray hasn't played any football for at least a month. Bergvall's going to be close to that. Maybe 3 weeks, maybe a bit more. And I think not many teams will go to the Parc des Princes and score 3 goals. Even the top sides are going to struggle to do that. So there was definitely something you can, essentially you're kind of mining for gold. Not me, but you're kind of cleaning away all the bits of rubbish you don't want. And underneath there is this little nuggets of gold, and they were those 2 teenagers, and of course Randall Colomwani as well. And I think the fans inside the stadium acknowledged that. When I was watching them at the end, the players were all going over there, and they were getting a really good ovation from the fans because they tried, they'd had a go. Even the manager's tactics, which you kind of might look at it and think, oh, 4 central midfielders, how is this attacking? But it kind of was, because the mentality was different. The attitude they were bringing, and that comes from having players like Gray and Bergvall who are fearless and just like, well, I'm not just sitting back, let's go for this. And it was much more enjoyable for the fans, and there was this kind of nice connecting moment between them all after the final whistle when they went over that corner. We were saying, Richarlison scored his opening goal, and he was right in front of the away fans, the Spurs fans. All he had to do was go like, hello. And I'm pretty sure he ran away from them because I don't think he realised they were there. But yeah, I think it is. I think it just shows that you care. It goes such a long way for the fans if players show they care. And Archie Gray said afterwards about the fans, the fans were unbelievable. They've stuck with us through a lot of hard times, and we can't thank them enough for the support they give us, especially after a few tough games. Hopefully there are a few positives tonight that we can give them. Obviously it's not good enough, these losses at a club like Tottenham, but we're going to look to improve that. And look, the way to improve it, Thomas Frank has to be brave. He has to be brave with his selections as well, and he has to put his faith in the exciting young players. Instead of maybe setting up his team with hope rather than expectation, go in there like, yeah, go on, we're going to take it to them. And obviously we've got Saturday night, stupid kickoff time, 8 o'clock with Fulham coming to town. Next 2 games at 8 and 8:50. I don't get it. It's just they're just wrong, especially with I guess with a London derby, it's not far for people to travel, but Newcastle one's still mind-boggling. And look, it's a chance for Spurs to change this utterly horrible home form. They need to give that 60,000 or so Spurs fans packed inside that stadium something to hold on to and like I said, feed into the good stuff of last night. And I think with Thomas Frank, he's always been labelled as adaptable. When I was researching him before he came through the door, that was what everyone would tell me around Brentford. He's just this really adaptable guy, very tactically astute in terms of he can fit things to different situations. That's great. And I just wonder whether, has he tried too hard to bend to what maybe others expect of him when coming into this job, in terms of, should I do this? Should I play like this? Should I just try to get 3 points for this? Just try and get a result. But yet, if he played with the way that his Brentford team often would, with the speed and the aggression, the exciting football, he's scored a lot of goals. He's kind of almost gone away from what brought him to that point. His own mantra that I said to him in the pre-match press conference in France on Tuesday night, I said, look, your mantra is, if you don't take risks, then you are taking risks. Does it hurt you when people say that you're not a risk taker, your team is not playing in that style? And he was like, you could see he's kind of, well, I feel like we do take risks. It's like, I'm shaking my head as he's saying it. And I think that's what it is. I think he needs to get back to what's brought him to this point in his career. And I feel that's the parallel with Pochettino. I think Pochettino got away from that. He started to kind of maybe just try to deal with bigger egos, bigger kind of stars. And I mean, do you remember he allowed that squad to pick their own captains, and they picked Adebayor and Kabul, I think it was, or Kabul and Adebayor, sorry, the other way around. And with no disrespect, they were not the best captains for that group of players. And he swiftly realised no, but Hugo Lloris in charge. And yeah, I just wonder if Thomas Frank now, it's like, just get it going in your own style and your own image. And because, there were spells last night in Paris when, like you said, Spurs had an identity again, and it was fun to watch them, and that needs to continue. Pochettino had his revolution, he said, and it began in that kind of night. I feel like Thomas Frank has to begin his revolution now. Let's properly make this the Thomas Frank team rather than kind of some kind of keeping everyone happy hybrid. Just go for it. So we had another press conference today, which was incredibly awfully timed at 3 p.m. today, despite the fact that all bar, I think, George Sessions from PA managed to get back. He was the only one that had an early train this morning. So none of the kind of regulars, certainly the regulars that travelled, were able to get there. But there was a press conference, and it was not the most interesting. So I'm not devastated I missed it, but some of the questions and the answers I'm going to... I'll let you know. I want your thoughts on them. That's kind of why I'm saying it. I wouldn't say there was any hugely important stuff, but I just feel there's the stuff that I'd like to know your thoughts on it. So I was asked for team news. He said, nothing's changed from the Arsenal PSG games apart from the suspension to Kuti. Radu will not be able to start yet, but he's progressing and training. Yes, and that's it. I mean, technically, Brennan Johnson's available now because he was suspended in Paris. And he was asked, anyone else close to coming back? No. That was all he said, just one word, no. There's more coming on that, don't worry. And then he was said, and this is one, well, let's see what you think. So the question went, 5 months ago when you got the job, you said to me, the only thing you can be absolutely certain of is that you will lose games, which you're now doing. Thomas Frank interrupted the question to say, I promised that, I succeeded. And it's like, it's a funny little joke in the room, but I actually think stuff like that just reads so badly out of the room because you're seeing it as text mostly. Probably aggregators are just taking that and putting it out there as well. I haven't seen whether they have or not. But it looks awful. It looks like someone's saying, I promise you we'd lose and I did it. You're welcome. It's like, it's not a good look. And I know he's got this very honest, I don't know if it's a Danish thing, a Scandinavian thing, whatever it is. He's quite honest and self-deprecating and will just say little things that kind of in his head are quite funny. They are funny. I'm not saying that he's the only one that finds them funny. It was a little bit like on the press conference on Tuesday night. He was asked, like, do you want to be the one? Do you think it's important that you're the one that breaks the cycle of managers being sacked at Spurs? And he was like, oh, it's incredibly important, which was quite funny because, what else is he going to say? And it's actually a really interesting answer. I think it was Tom Allnutt from the Times got out of him and he was saying like 1,000%. I said 1,000%. I'm sure of one thing 1,000%. I know how to build a team. I know how to build a club, and I will do that here. And it was a good answer. But yeah, sometimes he does his jokes, and I just think, I know how that's going to play out on social media. To essentially say, I delivered what I promised, I succeeded, that we're going to lose matches. It just looks horrendous if people are starting to turn against you already. I'd like to maybe see just go away from that for the moment while things aren't going particularly amazingly. He was asked, is Fulham at home a must-win? To which he said, yeah. But unfortunately, I think the stats is not like there's 100% sure that we will win the game. That's the beauty of it. I'm very aware that a top performance and a win will be very helpful. But I go into every game believing we'll win. I go into every game believing we have prepared well and we will do a top performance. So what I can affect is that I need to make sure that we're well prepared. I need to make sure we pick the best possible team with the best possible opportunity to win the game. And I need to make sure we're in the perfect condition to come back out. And then we need a little bit of margin. That should be enough to win. It's interesting that about picking the best possible team. Because I would say last night was the first time in a little while you've kind of felt like, okay, you could see he picked the right team for the occasion. Might not have felt like it pre-match, but you could see the way the game played out. Actually, they did everything he was asking. Only when they started to make silly mistakes, especially Romero, that the game got away from them. But actually, it was probably the right team for the night. Whereas in previous games, it feels like he's having to change at mid-game to try and get anything out of it because his starting 11 was not the right one. So that was interesting. Right, I said we go back to injury stuff. So he was asked about the fact that, look, when are you going to get Kulusevski and Solanke back? Because they're big players for you and you've had to kind of operate without them. And they would walk into a lot of teams in the Premier League. And he was asked, is it almost unfair to judge you without these two players? He said, it's part of it. It's part of it. We get judged if we walk into a club like this, a fantastic club, Tottenham Hotspur. There will be expectations every day. For every performance, the performance adds together. So that's part of the game, so no problem with that. Of course, I'd love to have Dominic and Kulusevski ready to play for us. But they are not available right now. Then other players need to step up. I need to find solutions, but that I will do. So the reporter, I think it was George from BBC Radio, I think, he said, are you any closer to getting them back? Are we talking weeks or is it close to January? And this is going to be an interesting one that people will not like. I think we've had a few of these press conferences. In one of the last ones, I said, I think it's much easier for me to say now they are ready to be selected instead of when are they back. Right now, relatively, they're not available. So, yeah, take from that what you will. He's essentially saying, I'm not answering questions on this anymore. I'll let you know when they're back. And it's a bit like, that's really frustrating for the fans because the fans will constantly say, why have you not asked about Solanke? Why have you not asked about Kulusevski when they're back? And the trouble is, this is why. I think I was the person that he said to me. I think it was him. It was me. He said to me that, essentially it's easier to say when they'll be back. But also, you'll get journalists that weren't there today who won't be aware that he said that and will still ask about them. And he's going to get all funny about it like he is there. But look, we know Kulusevski, I think we know that that's a long timeline. That's fine. The Solanke stuff, it is what it is. It's dragging on a hell of a long time. And I do feel with Solanke it's going to be a sudden, oh, there he is. I think it will just be he's feeling ready and they get him involved in training. Hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll see. Because they keep coming thick and fast. And he was asked by George Sessions, who had raced back to be there, about Archie Lucas being so good in midfield. But actually, they'd only started once together in midfield in the Premier League. And would he have any hesitation in them starting together in the Premier League again? Or are they not quite ready? He said, I think if you perform like they did against the European champions away from home, I think you're ready to start in the Premier League. So the follow-up was, so no hesitation to play them against Fulham then? He said, absolutely not. We'll see. I'd be surprised if he does play both of them, especially because maybe Gray's been out for so long. Perhaps it's a bit risky to, again, start him straight away, but I would love to see them both play again. I don't think you need to have Bentancur and Paulinho. I think you stick Paulinho in this time at the tip of the kind of thing. You could maybe even get away with Xavi coming in for Sarr. And then we're cooking with some kind of exciting stuff going on. Because you're at home. You can open it up a little bit more. But we'll see. We'll see. That's to come. That is the next one. Saturday night. Let me know what team you would pick for that game. But yeah, like I said, There's no getting away from defeat, and disappointing that they kind of threw away the lead twice. But there was definitely more positives to take from within that than that absolute horror show on Sunday that I never really ever want to talk about again. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to because things will feed back to it. What else was I going to say? A very quick one. I noticed while we were away actually in Paris, the under-18s have named their new coach. Is Jamie Carr, who's come across from Man City. I don't believe there's any relation to Stephen Carr, but I could be wrong. Simon Davis, who's like the academy head at Spurs, will have known him very well from City, no doubt, where he was under-16s coach and an assistant to their under-18s. So, yeah, I think his first game is a North London derby. So, good luck with that one. Yeah, I think that's it, really. I don't think there's anything else that I need to bore you with. Next video will be probably early Sunday morning, I would imagine. Because it's going to be a late night on Saturday. I don't know if I'll be able to record it on Saturday night. Probably not. It might be one that's actually recorded at some point on Sunday. Otherwise, I'll just be working through the entire night. So there you go. So I've done what Tom asked. His book's there. If you want to, get it for Christmas, that's what it looks like. It's all about the run to the final and last season and all the ins and outs and little insights and stuff, behind the scenes stuff you might not be aware of. Yeah, there you go. I'm hoping he'll be happy now and he'll stop asking me. Right, that's it. I'm going to head off. Thank you for those who are still watching the movie channel that I do as well. I do have good fun with that. It's kind of like my little hobby on the side when I don't want to talk about Spurs anymore. I want to talk about something else. Gold goes to the movies, which is, it's good fun. Kind of spoiler-free movie reviews. So you don't, it's not going to ruin you going to your trip to the cinema, but it might just tell you if there's something worth seeing or not. Very different to this. Kind of. Still utterly unprofessional, but, it is what it is. Right, time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.